So I welcome to this webinar of Oro University all attendees, Dr. Param and the other panelists. So we start with introducing Dr. Param to our attendees. Dr. Param is working as an Associate Professor of Law at GNLU Gandhinagar. He has served as a Dean Academic Affairs and Alumni Relations at Gandhinagar GNLU. He has also been a member of Governing Board, Auroville Foundation, Government of India and UNESCO. He has been also the member of World Commission on Environmental Law and International Consortium for Law and Religion. Today, Dr. Param will be sharing his views on role of spirituality and spiritual values in education, law, justice, and society. So, Dr. Param, I invite you to share your views on the topic.
Okay. Thank you.
Answer, we will be taking question and answers at the end.
Yes.
The question and answers will be given in the Q&A section by the attendees.
Yeah, fine, absolutely fine. So thank you for the genuine introduction. Is my audio clear?
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Yes.
Okay. So greetings to each and everyone who have come here for this wonderful webinar which Oro University is conducting. And I have been seeing the growth and development of Oro University, which is doing something very important, very unique, because they concentrate on the transformational approach to education. As a part of this great exercise, this webinar series at this point of time is a great gesture, inviting all kinds of people from different disciplines to speak on the themes which are most important for us. I thank the Oro University, especially H.P. Ramaji, the visionary leader of this university, and the Vice Chancellor of this university, Professor Dr. Rajan Velukar, Professor Dr. Rohit Singh, Dean of the university, Professor Dr. A.K. Yadav, Registrar of this university, and our Shilpi Madam, who is in the Department of Law School, and each and every faculty who are part and parcel of this wonderful educational exercise called Oro University, and to all the participants and the students. So I thank every one of you for inviting me, and I feel it is a great honor to be a part of this exercise. Before we begin, we need to have a context of why we are going to discuss something very important, that is the role of spirituality and spiritual values in education, law, justice. So the role of spirituality, spiritual values in law, education, society, and justice. The context is we are currently in an unprecedented situation. Many call it as a crisis situation called the COVID-19. Whatever be the nature of our observation in relation to this crisis, we must understand that there is a new necessity that has come upon us, especially in the field of education where we all are involved. The necessity is that we need to give a new direction to education. We need to give a new direction to each and every profession which are taking its shape from universities like Oro, or for that matter any other university. So this context of COVID-19 and the necessity of a new direction, especially for a country like India, which is talking about the future of the country, the future of humanity, the developmental goals and so on. And India going to be the global player, a key player in this whole international community and international relations and the overall development of the humanity. We need to certainly think about education in a different context. This brings us the idea and a question, which is, what are the current values which are there in education, which we find insufficient or something more is required for that, because we feel the necessity of spirituality and spiritual values in education, law, justice, and society. if you see the current values of education, they are either largely social or economic, or some angles of culture and psychology is being taken into consideration, but they don't form part of the crux of the education, because the human life in this society, the human life in this world is largely social and economic, understandable. But what we need to see that the individual life or the human life is just not only the social and the economic. There is much more to it. There is a greater depth to it. That's exactly where we need to discuss the new direction that we are going to give for education as a whole, legal education in context, or contribution of education to the society, and finally, what is this development and what is this justice for the society as a whole. I have deliberately kept spirituality and spiritual values in education, law, justice and society, because for me all these four, they are in sequence. What we call as education in general, be it any discipline, be it management, be it science, be it social sciences, be it arts and humanities, whatever be the nature of it, they all finally culminate into some kind of a norm, some kind of an order, which is the business of law and the legal education and the legal system. The moment legal system comes into the picture in education, or the contribution of education into the society, the idea of justice is very predominant. The moment the word justice or the idea, the dimension justice coming into the picture, we immediately start thinking about society as a whole. It is no more individualistic in a narrow sense, rather it is in a collective sense. So when we say the role of spirituality and spiritual values in education, law, society and justice, it means we are going to create an education, we are going to create certain new directions and dimensions to education, as a result of which that education, the professional who learns from this discipline, becoming a professional, is going to contribute something immense, something worthwhile to the society as a whole. In this context, when we say society as a whole, we cannot avoid spirituality. We cannot avoid spiritual values. So far, we have handled social and economic, absolutely fine. But they seem to be insufficient, because we have to move towards a greater world, towards a greater well-being, to a deeper well-being and so on. As a result of which, the education and the professionals who are coming out of this education, they need a new direction. It is in this context, it is at this juncture that the role of spirituality and spiritual values in education, law, justice and society comes into the picture. So we have the clear context of why we need to introduce spiritual values in education. Yet another interesting thing which is happening in education is that all over the world, this is my observation, in research across all disciplines, be it sciences, be it social sciences, arts and humanities, or professional sciences and so on, you have largely the four brands of research: the interdisciplinary, the multidisciplinary, the cross-disciplinary, and the transdisciplinary. All these researchers are trying to show or attempting to bring solutions to the problems of human life, the problems of social existence, in which they say that knowledge ought to become integrated, knowledge ought to become integral, because we are living in an interdependent society. We are living in a society in which interdependence cannot be avoided, it is become indispensable. The moment interdependence has come into picture, as a result of which the thought processes that are going on, the knowledge which is happening across all disciplines, they become very complex. What research can be better than spiritual understanding of life as a whole can be used for the fulfillment of the education, for the fulfillment of the professional goals. This is exactly we need to understand the role of spirituality and spiritual values. Now, the biggest question comes into the picture. What is that? What do we mean by the term spirituality and spiritual values? Because unless and until this is very clear for us. What we mean by the term spirituality? What do we mean by the term spiritual value? How they are going to be applied in education? It will be very difficult for us to find the fullest scope of the application of this integrated knowledge. So what is spirituality, or what is a spiritual value? To put it very simply, spirituality means an awakening to a greater reality other than your mind, emotion, sense and body, which we normally identify as our personality. When we say myself, I, what we understand by these two terms is that we think in terms of our mind, we feel in terms of our emotions or the senses, the reactions and the body, as a result of which we form an outline of our personality. Perfectly fine. That's how we have to start. But spirituality means it is an awakening to a greater reality, which is other than your current mind, other than your current emotion, other than your current sensory skills and the body. It is a greater reality which is there inside us. And this greater reality, awakening to that greater reality, discovery of this greater reality other than your current understanding of your personality in terms of mind, emotions, senses and body. It is there inside us, not outside us. But it is not the mind, emotion, sense and body which we are currently in terms of, currently in connection, in contact. So which means we have two personalities. One is the external personality, which we call it as the body, the sense, the emotion and the mind. And the higher reality or the greater reality, which we call it as the spirituality, is the one that which is supporting this mind, is the one that which is supporting this emotion, is the one that which is supporting these senses, is the one that which is supporting this body. So this greater reality is holding these four planes of consciousness, is holding these four realms of our awareness, which we normally know as our personality. Which means the current personality is only a portion of that greater reality. How great it will be if we actually tap that greater reality, out of which comes this small mind which we are now using. How great it will be if we tap that greater reality, out of which the current emotions which are currently working inside us, how much energy it will get, how much depth it will get. Similarly in terms of senses, similarly in terms of body. So when we say spirituality means awakening to that greater reality other than the mind, emotion, senses and the body, means it is going to be of a two-way connection, a loop in which the current personality is getting connected with its own parent personality. It is getting connected with its own greater reality, not going outside this. So normally we call this greater reality as God, Brahman, X factor. Some say soul, some say Atma, some say psychic, some say self. There are so many terminologies which I have explained down the traditions all over the world. But what we need to keep in mind is there is a supreme reality, that is a greater reality other than this small reality which we are identifying as us. That greater reality needs to be brought down. It needs to be connected with the current reality. That is the first starting point of spirituality. So, the moment you get awakened to that greater reality means your own mind is getting awakened to its greater mind. Your own emotion is getting awakened to the greater emotion. Your own sense is getting awakened to a greater senses. Your own body getting awakened to a greater body. Which means from a limited personality, you become an unlimited personality of greatest potential. It is as good as that you are existing in an individual space in time. Suddenly your dimension becomes universal in context. Great leaders, powerful achievers, be it sports, be it politics, whatever be it spirituality, they all know this secret of connecting with the greater reality. It is just almost like switching on, a light switch. You switch on, and then the electrical circuits they pass through, the connections they go through, and then the light from there above comes into you, comes surrounding you, comes into the atmosphere. Suddenly you start seeing things more clear. It is so beautiful, this experience. So, what we mean by spirituality is that you are getting awakened to your own inner potential or higher potential or to the greater reality of which you are currently a minuscule, a part. As a result of which, your mind can become big, your emotions can become deep, your skills in the senses can become sharp, and your body can become strong. Which means, spirituality means awakening or discovery of that greater reality, this higher personality, inner personality, or you can even call it as core personality of yours, or you can even call it as true personality of yours. So which means, the first step of spirituality is awakening to your own greater reality, to your own true personality. Now the next question comes. What happens when this awareness takes place? What happens when you discover your own greater reality? Simple. The moment your own small limited mind, the moment your own limited emotions, senses and the body, they open to that vast, greater potential, greater energy, that universal cosmic scale, immediately some impact takes place. What is that impact? That impact is what is going to set, change, transform your normal personality into a greater personality. Which means, the moment your mind gets shifted to that higher awareness, the moment your emotion gets deepened to that greater source, the moment your senses become vast and strong, and the moment your body becomes big, deeper, subtle, the impact of it is the mind, the emotion, the senses and the body which you know already about is no longer limited, is no longer having any fatigue, is no longer any reductionist, is no longer any dogmatic, is no longer sentimental, emotional. Which means the normal mind, when it gets a connection or a contact with a greater reality, will become peaceful because it is in a vaster ground. That's why, when you go and observe a mountain or an ocean or a vast sky, suddenly you feel peaceful because that is a vast energy which makes you feel liberated, which makes you expand, which makes you extend. So, in mind, when the discovery of that greater reality takes place, it becomes peace in your mind. Similarly, when the emotion gets awakened to that greater reality, it becomes strength. Similarly, when your senses become awakened to that greater reality, you start developing different skills. Nowadays in modern management parlance, they talk about multi-skilling, multi-dimensional capacities, multitasking. How do you do all those things? You cannot be bound by only by few skills which you know of. And the modern educational requirement is that you need to be a teacher, you need to be a researcher, you need to contribute to society, you need to do this, you need to do that, which means you are actually all in all. How do you get all these things unless you get connected to that source which is all? Similarly, in terms of the body, which means the awakening that takes place in you makes your mind connect with the higher mind, emotion connect with the greater emotion, sense connect with the greater senses, and the body connect with the greater body. As a result of which, you will be same, you will look the same, but there will be a deeper personality behind you, over and above you, surrounding you. As a result of which, there is going to be a transformational shift in your consciousness and awareness from being individual to universal and cosmic. From being one-sided or lopsided to be many-sided. from being to smallest emotions or sentiments to the greatest depths of love, of empathy. And similarly, in terms of the body, to hold all these greater experiences, the energy. So when we say spirituality, we mean awakening to this greater reality, and as a result of this awakening, an impact of that greater reality influencing your current mind, emotion, senses, and the body, as a result of which you feel a change in the mind, you feel a change in the emotion, you feel a change in the senses, you feel a change in the body. As a result of which you are no longer the same individual. Which means the moment you are leaving to your office from your house, going to your university or going to your library for research, you look the same, you are same, but the energy surrounding you, but the peace surrounding you, the emotions surrounding you, and the physical dimension that is surrounding you is not individualistic, rather universal. It is possible. I am not saying it is so easy to connect immediately from the individual to the universal or the cosmic. It takes time. There are so many grades, there are so many gradations, there are so many stages to connect with. But I am talking about the possibility of how to get connected and what will be the impact. It's a very beautiful experience. I used to say spirituality is the most logical, rational experience. It is the most objective experience. Those who deny spirituality, the problem or the only limitation that they have is they don't have the experience. Because they think that spirituality can be imagined and immediately the experience will come. No. You need to shift your mental awareness to that greater awareness. Similarly at the emotional level, similarly at the sensory level, similarly at the body level. Unless and until you make this paradigm shift, a radical shift from the individual to the greater. How it is to be done? That is a technology called yoga. There is a process. We have so much in our country to explore. That part I will come to it a little later. But we must be very clear. Education has a very close connection with spirituality. And spirituality can only help education to reach its goal. Because education, what do we mean by education? We want sustainability in education. We want inclusivity in education. We want access in education. We want equity in education. We want everything in education for everyone. So greedy sometimes we are, the educators. They want everything for everyone. At the same time, it's because that our goal is so high, so deep. We are finding it so difficult. But if we make this fundamental shift of consciousness from the individualistic, from individualizing, from the externalizing personality to that higher personality, it becomes very easy. Which means this is the spirituality what we talk about. Spirituality or spiritual values is nothing but awakening to your own greater potential, your own greater personality, greater reality, whatever name you call it. And then not only just awakening, not only just discover, but also allow it to impact your mind, emotion and body, so that in this world, in this life, in this educational space where we all are working, we can bring a change. We have to bring change by bringing these new thoughts and qualities. So, this spirituality is so practical. So, I used to say the spirituality in relation to law or in relation to any academics or in relation to any subject matter consists of 6 elements. Put it in a very simple way. So we have the context very clear. The image is very clear. Spirituality means to go back or to go inward, to go upward and connect with that greater reality, and then come from there. Make your mind, emotion, body, senses reinvigorate, re-engineer, and then fix it with that universal scale, the cosmic scale, and then work it out. So we are not discussing spirituality in terms of a conventional understanding which is going on all over. This is exactly where we need to understand one small point. Whenever I do the training on spirituality for lawyers, judges, public prosecutors or advocates, teachers, I used to keep a separate module. What is not spirituality? People used to wonder, why do I teach this? But I need to tell, because people think that spirituality means something in which you will be yourself, you will be happy, it will be full of bed of roses, and it will be something very different. But the problem is, in the spiritual exercise which I explained, that to connect with that greater reality, what happens is you need to withdraw yourself from the external consciousness for some time to get connected. Now what has happened? This withdrawal people consider it as spirituality, and as a result of which people are running away from responsibilities. Put everything as karma, put everything as God's will, God will take care. It is as good as, I used to say in this example, a researcher who sets the goal for solving a particular research problem, he goes to library, he is completely concentrated for 2 to 3 years doing this research. He is completely cut off from all those things. But that is not research. You need to collect all those knowledge and then show it in application and then bring a utility out of it. So similarly, when we talk of spirituality, normally people, in order to have that contact with the greater world, in order to have contact with the greater reality, they for some time withdraw themselves from the current mind, current emotion and sense and body, and that withdrawal cannot be considered as the outcome of spirituality. It is only a process. That's why people say, oh, spirituality means going away from life. Spirituality means not accepting world. Spirituality means not accepting materialism. Yes, it is at the initial stage. It is as good as a researcher going to a library doing research. That is not research. He is only seeking materials for research. He has not yet arrived at the results of the research. So what has happened in the human consciousness so far is that people felt that there are so many problems that are there in the world. How do we solve it? Oh, we need to realize that greater potential. The moment they come back and then feel the urge to realize that greater potential, and the moment they get the contact with the greater potential, they either get stuck there, they either remain there very peaceful, and they don't want to face the problem. They don't want to be kind, be compassionate, be empathetic in solving the problem, in solving the people's relationship with the problem. So as a result of which, spirituality has taken a wrong meaning. Spirituality means withdrawal from life, going away from life, not interested in life. Recently, it will be interesting for the participants here, I did a spirituality training webinar for a high-end corporate law firm. They were wondering how come spirituality will be useful for a corporate law firm. I said it is possible, I will show it to you. The moment I said that, there is a greater personality which you need to connect with, and then you can come back with that greater energy. Who doesn't want great energy? Who doesn't want peace of mind? Who doesn't want happiness? Who doesn't want great skills? We all enjoy all those with whatever skills that we have. We can amplify it. So they were surprised. They said, we thought spirituality is something going away from world. We never thought that a person will say that there is a connection between corporate practice and spirituality. I said it is. So what is not spirituality is that this withdrawal from life, this withdrawal from world, who initially some seekers, they had done it for a particular reason, for a particular purpose, has been misunderstood or wrongly construed as the outcome of spirituality. As a result of which you feel your problems are solved. But your problems are not solved. You are only going away from the problem. They say the more you go away from the problem, the distance increases. And it is very difficult to come back. It is better to solve it. So, what we mean by spirituality is the 6 elements of it is 1, it is life embracing. Spirituality is life embracing. And 2, it is world oriented. It is not away from the world. 3, it is problem solving. 4, it is peace building. 5, it is harmonious coexistence. And then 6, it is development oriented. So the 6 elements of spirituality, which I can repeat, life embracing, world embracing, development oriented, peace building, problem solving, and harmonious coexistence. So these are the 6 qualities, 6 elements that we have as aim of spirituality, as outcome of spirituality. So this is how spirituality needs to be seen. If you see these 6 qualities or 6 elements of spirituality, it perfectly fits the goal of education. Problem solving, peace building, world oriented, life oriented, development oriented, and harmonious coexistence. In fact, spirituality speaks all this. In fact, I would even say, in the legal parlance, the constitutional preamble, justice, equality, liberty, fraternity, is actually a spiritual principle. Okay, liberty is basically the flow of consciousness in which everyone seeks. That's why it is a matter of great right, my right. I cannot be denied of my right of seeking, expressing, freedom of speech and expression. It is basically a flowing consciousness. Equality, oneness, union, samatva, we say. So, the legal principles also have a spiritual co-equivalence. It is from these spiritual principles, legal principles have come up. That's why we say these values called preambular, Indian constitutional preambular values, justice, equality, liberty, fraternity, are part 3 of the Indian Constitution, which deals with fundamental rights. Why do we call it as fundamental? Because it is fundamental to our existence. You cannot deny it. Initially, it used to be called as natural rights, but later on they changed it to fundamental rights. Anyways, that is a different aspect of the constitutional history and naming of the legal words. But what I am trying to say here is that spirituality is life-oriented, world-oriented, development-oriented. Spirituality is problem-solving, peace-building, as well as peaceful, harmonious existence. How will you get that if you do not have a connection with that which has peace, which has all the knowledge? For problem-solving, you require enormous knowledge. For peace, you require peace first. And to understand life, you need to be in touch with life. And what is life? This mind, emotion, senses, and the body is what life is all about. So, you cannot avoid spirituality in education. More so, you cannot avoid spirituality in legal education. That's where last 4 to 5 years, I have been spearheading this through training programs at various levels for different stakeholders. Now I am entering the corporate world also to show that how spirituality can be used. So I take even a small corporate issue and then explain how it can be done. Now coming back to a simple slide which I would like to show all of you. Are you able to see the slide?
Yes, yes.
Yes. You just see this simple slide, which if you carefully observe, carefully follow, spirituality is the awakening to greater reality other than your mind, emotion and body. On the extreme left, you can see the parts of the being, the current nature. What are they? We have our mind, we have our emotion, we have our sense, and we have our body. We are endowed with all these, and our current mind has certain strengths and skills. Our current emotion also has certain strengths and skills, so also the senses and the body. But it has some plus, but it also has some minus. Minus in the sense, we can do things for what we want for our individual life, but we cannot be doing it on a collective scale because we are only individual. Our energies are only individualized. So when you have a contact with that greater reality, when you have a contact with that spiritual reality, the mind which becomes a greater mind, the emotion which becomes a greater emotion, sense which becomes a greater sense, and body becomes a deeper body. What are all the spiritual skills that you will acquire? Very clear. You just see, mind, when it becomes a greater mind, it expands. As a result of which, you will be able to witness and comprehend things. The most important thing for an educator, most important thing for a teacher or a researcher across any discipline, not necessarily legal discipline, any discipline. You require expansion first. That's why we normally study different subjects, different articles, different books, review of literature and so on in order to expand our mind. But the expansion can also come from if you get a contact with that greater reality. As a result of that expansion, you will be able to witness. It is just like a junior teacher goes to a senior most professor, asks that I have this particular problem, how do you solve it? And that person tells, no, you have to think like this and it has to be like that. Immediately you feel, wow, it's a good solution. It's precisely because when you are in a particular solution, in a particular space of a problem, unless and until you come out of it and witness that as a problem from outside, you will not be able to see the boundaries of that problem. You will not be able to see the complexities of the problem. It is just like, a patient or a client who is going to a doctor or a lawyer. He has his own angst, anxiety. But the lawyer or the doctor who handles the client, he looks at the patient with witnessing power, capacity. He also cannot be involved in the same anxiety of a client who has come to a lawyer. Doctor also cannot become over anxious the way in which a patient feels the pain and scared of maybe an operation or some kind of a treatment. For that you need to have a witness. That witness can come only when you expand yourself. You see the correlation of that expansion, witness and comprehension in terms of education and research, law, justice, society. What is that? That is what we call it as knowledge. Those who have already acquired that witness and already comprehended that particular problem and express that knowledge in the form of a book or an article or a writing, you have to read that to understand. And afterwards, you can also get open to a greater faculty called intuition. All researchers, sometimes they feel the sense of intuition. I remember there was an advocate who was arguing in the High Court. He prepared his brief so well and he was arguing. And in the midst of the argument, the judge asked a particular question to the lawyer, which the lawyer was not at all prepared, which I knew about. But suddenly the lawyer said a particular answer with a flow of certain ideas and thoughts and insights in the case law. And the judge was completely surprised, and the whole audience in the courtroom, they were surprised. So I asked that lawyer later on, advocate, when he came out of the courtroom, how did you get this thing? Because you never prepared this point. You are not into this. How did you get this? He told me one interesting thing. He said, no, that knowledge came out so nicely. What do you mean by that knowledge came out? From where did it come out? It is because he had the passion to serve. It is because he had the passion to solve a particular problem. And the knowledge which he has already gathered, but while arguing he did not know it, or he did not develop that particular point, suddenly that knowledge actually came. That is the intuition. And through the development of the thinking and the interpretation, we can develop this intuitive skills. We can develop this knowledge. That is the best way to develop subject knowledge, which is more than information. Recently, I attended a conference in Kolkata, Artificial Intelligence. It is that Indian Statistical Institute, where a particular scientist explained very clearly that all the knowledge which the teachers are giving right now to all the students, it can be replicated and it can be given by a robot. Because information has become a digital bit. We are living in digital commons. We are living in digital reality. All information, all knowledge is an information byte. How do you convert this information into a greater knowledge of experience? For that, you require awareness of who you are. What in psychiatry and psychotherapy or psychology, they are now calling it as mindfulness. You need to be mindful. What is mindfulness? Even in the legal angle, I used to say it is the explanation of cause and effect. You need to know why a particular student is asking this particular question, or why a research scholar is having a trouble in arriving at a solution. What is the cause and what is the effect? What is the connection between the two? That awareness you need to complete. That can come only when your mind has connection with that greater reality. Similarly, at the level of emotions, depths of feelings, it brings strength. It brings, at the educational space, the passion, discipline, commitment, the extension, how you take that subject research as a depth of experience and knowledge, as a result of which you will be able to solve problems for the society. First thing about contribution of education to the society is problem solving. Unless and until you know the depths of a particular issue, how will you solve it? It is just like a thread, a bundle of thread which are tangled. Unless and until you know the whole tangles deep inside, you will not be able to remove it. So similarly, at the human emotional level also, it is more or less like how I am unable to arrive at a particular answer because our interest to solve a problem and then our witness is not happening, but our passion to solve a problem, all these are to be rearranged, re-engineered. These are all now coming up in research methodology also. And the third thing is the normal senses that we have. At a time, it is seen that we can display only one or two skills. While talking, our memory works, our vocal cord works, our attention to people works, but I may not be able to write. Or I may not be able to think that, oh, this is a very good question that has come. I should keep this in the mind for my next research article. I should work on it and then find out what is the solution of it. I may remember, I may not remember. Similarly, like that, you can develop various skills, multi-skilling, multi-dimensionality. How do we develop it? Unless and until you train the senses, not just with one or two skills, but various skills. Just the mental skill of the witness and the comprehension and the intuition. The sense, the depth of feelings, the passion, the discipline, the commitment. And the harmony of all these skills. That brings the best relationship that one can have with a teacher, student, and the society. This is the best social outreach in my understanding. World embracing and life embracing, which we talk about, and problem solving, development, and so on. And this is what we do in a training program, what is called capacity building. We deliver our experience, which we have experienced, and share that experience through knowledge to others, and then tap that skill in that particular person, and then make that person like what you are. Capacity building, extension and training program, which UGC talks about. Fourth thing is the body, the dynamics, in which you are not the only individual. You are part of the society. We are living in an interdependent society. We are living in a collective society. The individual is only one of the units of the collective whole. So how do we get this empathy between the individual and the collective? Unless and until you go back, unless and until you withdraw yourself and get identified with your greater reality. At that level, you see the oneness of unity. And that can come at the educational level, research level. It is about the sincerity, it is about the output, it is about the circumstances and opportunities, which every circumstance and opportunity you must make use of. The best dynamics that from the individual to collective is happening when you go to class. You think you have understood a particular problem and you go to a class, but suddenly a student asks a different question. Because that student has a different wavelength and a different personality which is different from us. He is part of the society. He is one other than you. So if you think that what you are saying is only correct, what your knowledge is only the ultimate knowledge, you may not be able to integrate the individual with the collective and create a social cohesion. And that's exactly where the accomplishment of development orientation coming into picture, as a result of which we move towards the higher humanity. Perfection takes place, progress takes place, teacher, society, nation, development. So these are the normal 4 skills which we already know about: mind, emotion, sense and body. When we get connected to that greater reality, it adds new qualities to your mind, new qualities to your emotions, new skills, your sense and new strength and energy to your body. As a result of which, you no longer contained or happy or satisfied or fulfilled with mere information. You can go to knowledge, and from knowledge you can go to intuition. From normal passion and discipline, you can go to commitment and extend that in the social outreach. From harmony of skills, as a result of which you can accept yourself and accept others, because you see different skills that are coming up. As a result of which you can even impart these skills in the training program. And finally, the dynamics of being an individual to the collective. That is the crux of education. Recently, I was reading a particular article in which I found academic research excellence. There was a conference that was going on a long time back about identifying what is research excellence. So it was kind of a conference that was happening in Europe as well as in USA, where scholars from both Europe and USA, they were discussing what we should identify as research excellence. They identified 4 qualities. 1, originality. A research excellence means originality. 2, what you consider as originality, it must have some significance. And 3, the originality and the significance which you are bringing, it must have a rigor, a research rigor, a methodological rigor, a structured, systematic process. And finally, it must lead to an impact. These 4 qualities: originality, significance, rigor, and impact. So if you see even the modern education or the new dimensions of education coming from certain scholars in different universities all around the world, they are also realizing that the current value system that we have in educational approach or research methodological approach is not sufficient. It is actually insufficient, because world is becoming interdependent and the knowledge is becoming complex, and we no longer can be satisfied with the individual way of doing things. Rather, we must move towards a greater vision, a greater seeing. That requires a shift from individual personality to a greater reality. The discovery of that greater consciousness, that greater awareness. Now, I want to show only one more slide. After that, I will take up the questions. Now, many a times people, how do we make this shift? It's so interesting. No? Secret tips also I have to give you. So you have to understand that the 4 parts of what we discussed, mind, emotion, senses, and the body, all are actually interdependent. All are there in each and every one. Only thing is, only 1 or 2 parts are predominant. You need to slowly integrate. You find out which part is predominant in you, and then start working on it and connect all the 4 parts. Inside mind, emotion, skill, and body can be there. Inside emotion, mind, skill, and body can be there. Inside skill, mind, emotion, skill, and body can be there. And inside body, skill, emotion, and mind can be there. But all these becomes very easy the moment you make a shift to that greater reality, and then come back with that increased awareness and increased energy. And I used to say that at least twice a day, 30 minutes each, morning and night, you have to sit. Like how you do research when you want to do a particular research to solve a problem, you go to library. But when you want to do research in your own inner self, you don't sit quiet. This is the problem that we have. When we want to do research to solve a particular social problem, we go to the society to find out empirical data we collect, or we go to a library to find who have solved the problems, the research knowledge involved in them. But when we want to solve a problem which is inside ourselves, we don't explore inside. That is a subjective research which we have to do. So I used to say at least twice a day, 30 minutes each, either in the morning or in the night. Give yourself a special time, a special energy. Internalize these thoughts and values. That how we have to do it. India has maximum amount of knowledge and so much of literature is already available. 3. Connect these thoughts and values in your respective professional space when you go there. Otherwise, what happens in our individual workspace, we get stressed with the collective body, because each and everyone has an agenda, each and everyone has an aim and goal. As a collective organization, each and everyone performs a particular role, and each and everyone will be performing from the mental side, or from the emotional side, or from the sensory side, or from the body side, or from different angles. So everyone is pulling and pushing. Unless and until you have that sense of harmony, by having that greater reality inside, you will not be able to mingle. There will always be some kind of problem. So connect these thoughts and values when you go to your office, when you go to library, when you do research, and then bring the integration. And then you will slowly see that you are becoming a part of the society by remaining inside the university. You are able to understand what the problems in the society are. And I used to say, start your feeling exercise. I asked someone whether it is right or wrong, a particular question, to a very senior person who is well versed in all these knowledge. So he asked me a simple question. I asked, how do I know that whether what I am doing is correct or wrong? So he said, what do you feel? What do you feel? Because feeling is a deeper emotion. If you are not comfortable with what you are doing, if you feel somewhat disconnected or stressed, what you are doing is not correct. So this feeling exercise means, feel. When you have a contact with that greater reality, you should have a feeling of peace. When you have contact with the greater reality, your emotion should be very sweet, very strong, not weak. Similarly, at the sensory level, your multiple skills develop. At the body level, energy develops. You have to do this. This is the exercise that needs to be done. So initially, at the level of knowledge level, at the level of information, at the level of understanding and assimilating all these ideas, we need to be very clear. The moment we are very clear, then the next journey of this practice starts. There is only one thing that can give experience of all this, that is the practice. So the last slide, how to discover this greater reality. Ingathering of knowledge of the various realities of this. I will be sharing with all of you some little material so that you can read and then internalize yourself. So read all of them and chew those ideas inside you. Ingathering of knowledge of the various realities of peace and awareness. And then internalize will. Willpower is a very great thing. It's the most concrete reality that is possible. Self-concentration and self-opening, it's a power. Many sportsmen I see, they have extraordinary willpower to do things. We may find it very fatigued at the end of the day. Sometimes I see my students, immediately they rush to the football playground and they play very nicely, very happily. I used to wonder, where does this come from? It is the push of that willpower. We need that willpower. But what happens when we get into academics and teaching, we only concentrate on the mind, we slowly lose our emotion and the senses of the body. Then integrate, harmonize all these parts of yours. Identify your mind, your emotion, your senses, your body, and in that peace can be brought, sweetness, harmony can be brought, sensory skills can be enhanced, and body can be developed. Then act, dynamic acting to enrich your peace experience regularly by applying these secrets which I told, the 4 tips on a regular basis. With this, you will get to know that you are able to very clearly understand, this is the spirituality. So this spirituality is about self-realization. This spirituality is about self-empowerment. It is about self-fulfillment. So people used to ask me, so if you do spiritual practice daily, regularly, what do you get? I said, I become more happy. I become less fatigue. I get more energy. I get more joy. I don't feel divided. I don't feel divisive. I don't feel stressed. It is such a beautiful experience, let me tell you. Once we have it, it becomes a part of us. Then after some time, you will see that it is just like energy, like a contagious energy, which actually spreads in the atmosphere surrounding you. Everything becomes harmonious. Everything becomes very positive and highly rewarding, satisfying. So this is the relevance of spirituality, or the knowledge of spirituality and spiritual values, and the actual direct practical application of spirituality in education. It can also be applied in law, it can also be applied in society, and to lead to justice and self-government. So I stop here. I would like to take questions if there are any. Anybody?
Yeah, Shilpi ma'am, you can.
Yes, Dr. Param.
Yes, tell me.
Dr. Param, there are certain questions for you.
Yeah.
One of the attendee is asking, is the current law connected with Nyaya Sutra, which is written by Gautam Muni? And what do you think about Magna Carta? Does it have a shadow of spirituality? So, spirituality in connection with Magna Carta.
Okay. See, all these various documents that have come all around the world, down the history, they all have some reflections of spirituality. Spirituality is there in the nature itself. Spirituality is there in the universe itself. What we mean by spirituality is that greater reality and awareness. So people across various times in different sections of the world and the society, they did receive the ideas of justice. They did receive the ideas of equality. They did receive the ideas of fraternity and justice. But how to make it happen? They only conceptualized, they only felt that there is a thing called equality, there is a thing called justice, there is a thing called liberty and fraternity. But how do we make it happen unless and until you get a contact with that greater reality itself? Get awakened to that greater reality and bring it down and bring an impact in your daily life. Which means to say, Indian Constitution also has a spirituality in terms of thought. But in terms of application, Constitution is a document. It is we who have to give life to it. When we say we, means not just the same mind, emotion and the sense and the body, but also our higher mind, higher emotion, higher sense and higher body. As a result of which, we can even elevate this simple document called Constitution to a greater reality. I will give you one example. Take the case of recently the Supreme Court has decriminalized the same sexuality. They spoke about fraternity. They said that irrespective whether one likes a sexual orientation of a particular person, this way or that way, that particular person cannot be discriminated in a public space, because he is also part and parcel of the society. He is one of us. We are part of him. He is also part of us. Where does that oneness come from? Where did this idea come from? Constitution is same. Article 14 is same. Indian Penal Code provisions are same. But it is the spiritual understanding which gave a new interpretation. So if you have the spiritual experience of this greater reality, you can even explain the ordinary word. If you see that the same sexuality gentlemen, for the first time, they explained so much about fraternity, oneness, equality. So spirituality is already there everywhere. But it is we who have to unlock that by discovering that greater reality inside us. And suddenly you become expansive. I'll give you one more simple example. You know, right to commit suicide is decriminalized as far as the Indian Penal Code is concerned. If you see, they say that this particular right to commit suicide as a right to life cannot be equated with any other right, like right to free speech or right not to free speech. Because in this right to end your life, once you commit and exercise this right to end your life, your right goes away and your life also goes away. You cannot revive back. Then a question came. Initially, the Supreme Court had the idea that right to commit suicide, right to life includes right to die also. But then later on, slowly the knowledge came from different quarters, especially the Mental Health Care Act 2017. Section 115 very clearly says that those who commit suicide, they have a distressed personal space. It is a kind of a disorder. And they brought two interesting documents from the psychiatric experiments from American Psychiatry Association and Psychology Association. What is called, you have two important documents called Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which explains what human mind is all about, or International Classification of Disorders. In that, they clearly explain that those who commit suicide, they have some problem with themselves. They cannot face themselves, they cannot face the society, they are in a problem. So when they commit suicide and the commission of suicide doesn't take place, you are actually punishing them. They are already in a problem. So it becomes like a double punishment for them. So if somebody commits suicide and if he is not successful in that attempt, he is to be punished. It means, what is the necessity of it? As a result of which, the government of India and the parliament, they decided we need to decriminalize this particular provision from the Indian Penal Code, which involves right to commit suicide. And the Mental Health Care Act, section 115, very clearly talks about those who commit suicide, they should be given treatment by the government, by the respective state authorities. Detailed guidelines are given because they are suffering. You need to help them. So law, you see, legal system and the judicial interpretation, they want to help a person who is actually suffering. Is this not spirituality? Is this not life orientation? Is this not problem solving of that particular person who is distressed to such an extent that he wants to commit suicide? Is this not peace building? Is this not harmonious coexistence? Spirituality can be seen, applied and interpreted and practically made possible in every section of law. If you I think Madam Shilpi attended one of the training programs on ethics. My training program on spirituality is coming very soon. I invite all of you to attend that. In that, I am showing by case laws, I am showing by case studies, I am showing by legal provisions across different laws how spirituality is actually helpful. I'll give you one more example. Take the case of sustainable development. Sustainable development talks about intergenerational equity, intragenerational equity. What is this intergenerational equity and intragenerational equity? It is about the time space. You are not the only person who is living in the current moment, the current present. There is also a future generation. Intergenerational equity, intragenerational equity. They should also be given a chance to explore and exploit the natural resources in the way you are exploring and exploiting the natural resources for your own needs. So they put a limitation, they put a question on your greed versus need. Is this not spirituality? Take the case of Animals Cruelty Act, Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1961. You cannot inflict cruelty to animals. It's gone. Of course, there are certain complications in understanding of that particular provision. But I used to say even that has that provision. Take the case of Prevention of Corruption Act Section 30. It talks about that a public servant who is being given a particular legal remuneration, if he enjoys a property worth or tangible or intangible gifts or whatever be it, which is disproportionate to their source of income, he will be punished. You cannot do it. You are given a particular job in a government and you are fixed a legal remuneration for that particular purpose and you want over and above that. And how do you do that? You give benefits to those out of turn, to those people who can share some parts of profits in terms of cash or kind, whatever, which actually disturbs the equality which is there in the queue. It cannot be done. I can show numerous examples of how even spirituality is slowly coming into the legal space, but it is coming so far indirectly, but we can make it come directly. It is possible. So Magna Carta has spiritual principles, but it is we who have to live the spiritual reality inside us and then give effect to it. Like how we have seen various judgments which are coming up, in which new interpretations are coming. I'll give you a simple exercise for all of you. You just see Article 14 and Article 20 in 1950 and Article 14 and Article 21 in 2020. See the difference? Provision is same, but the interpretation kept on growing. It's because the human consciousness slowly expanding. Instead of going through this trial and error experimental approach, you can directly connect with the greater reality and bring it down. Very easy. I hope I answered the questionnaire.
Yeah, Dr. Param, there is one more question by an attendee who is also our faculty. He's asking that there is a modern concept of eat or be eaten, or concept of eat or be eaten.
Okay.
We may call it survival of the fittest.
Okay.
So in this situation, how spiritual values will help to survive?
Spiritual values are already coming to help us. Many, I in my training program, I have shown 45 instances across the world where they have introduced spirituality in the legal system, but without telling it. Take the case of a river in New Zealand called Wangshu. That river, they said that for 140 years they fought this case in the New Zealand parliament to say that this river has given water for several generations, so it is our grandfather and grandpa and grandma. As a result of which, this river needs to be protected. As a result of which, we need to put 2 security guards and trustees for this river who will take care of the river. They have understood that without river and water we cannot survive. But then they went one step higher. We should treat river with respect. We should protect river with highest respect. How do we do that? They brought out detailed guidelines. So I can show hundreds of examples. Yet another example. Restorative justice, which is becoming very popular in USA. Restorative justice is that both the offender and the victim, they both come together with their respective families and a person who mediates between those people. Of course, it's confidential. What do they do? In which the offender is made to see what pain he or she has inflicted to that victim. As a result of which, when you see somebody is suffering in pain, whatever be the nature of the pain, be it the physical or the economic or social, professional, job, career, whatever be, the offender is no longer in a denial mode. The offender is no longer in a defensive mode. He actually slowly gives up. So, spirituality has not entered fully the legal system and the justice system, but spirituality is slowly opening up. Sustainable development, cruelty to animals, worshipping rivers, even though there are self-benefits to it. Take the case of family counseling, take the case of restorative justice, take the case of Indian Penal Code decriminalizing same sexuality, or whatever be the nature of it. We are slowly emerging towards a greater domain of spirituality in which the so-called individualism and the individual right needs to be necessarily subsumed before the collective. It is now happening with the force of law. Take the case of corporate social responsibility. Philip Carroll's model. He says very clearly that when a group of laborers are coming to your factory and industry and they are working, they are not just coming only to your factory or industry with just only the mind or the body or the hand skills. They have a family and they have an emotion. They are coming with that. It may not be physically visible, but it is intangible. As a result of which, give some portion of your profits in the development of those people. Maybe start a school, maybe start a development program. You know, under the Indian corporate law, you have a list, a schedule which talks about corporate social responsibility. So it is slowly developing. Yes.
Dr. Param, here Dr. Vrishti want to ask you a question, or rather it's a request.
Yeah.
She's saying she has read your book, The Integral Dimensions of Law.
Okay.
And she's requesting you to explain or throw some light on the concerns and cautions for law graduates that you mentioned in chapter 6 of that book.
Oh,
so
okay.
It will be helpful for the students who are on the threshold of their profession. So it's a request.
Yeah, fine, absolutely fine. As far as legal profession is concerned, I used to say this in the context of advocacy. There are 4 ways of advocacy, or 4 stages to advocacy by which you can change the legal profession. You can also bring enormous career value to your legal profession. I used to call it as 4 C's. C means ABC. 4 C's. First is the client that you deal with. Normally, all advocates, they are interested in a clientele. Fine, perfectly fine. Don't stop with that. When you deal with a particular client, when you deal with a certain type of client, be it a criminal case or a civil case or a family case, you slowly get to understand what is the problem of that existing law or the legal provision and the interpretation and the social issues revolving that particular act or statute or whatever. As a result of your constant practice in a particular sector and a group of clients which you are dealing with, you get to slowly know the strength and weaknesses of that law itself which you are arguing in a court of law, either in a litigation or an ADR, whatever. So slowly what happens? You become a public spirited individual to find out the loopholes, to find out the inefficiencies of the systems, be it governance, executive, be it legislative, or be it even judicial interpretation. It is because you have handled group of people like that, group of clients like that, group of issues like this. So from the clientele, you can slowly go towards a cause. Oh, it is because of this particular inefficient provision or inefficient handling of the issue by the executive or a public servant. It is because of this inefficient or insufficient judicial interpretation. This particular provision is getting attacked again and again as a result of injustice. So students, the law graduates, the moment you enter the field, identify the field in which you are interested and then find out a group of clients. Over a period of time, you will get to know the cause of that particular problem itself. Slowly you can move to the third C, which is care. You can actually help. If you have handled, say, for example, 100 family law cases, you will be the best person to give guidance or advice to the ministry that deals with family matters. It's so simple. If you have handled 100 cases on a particular family personal law act or a statute or any provision, you will know threadbare the issues which are coming out again and again based on this particular provision or their clients or before the court or AD or whatever be it. Will you not be interested in sharing that as an advice to the government, to the parliament, or as a suggestion to the amendment of the provisions? So this is exactly where you can, from clientele to cause, and from cause you can move towards care, and finally you can bring a change. So the 4 C's: clientele, cause, care, and change. Bring change in this, because law is the only profession. Keep in mind, law is not like any other science. Law is not like any other profession. Law is the only profession that deals with 360-degree knowledge and 360-degree action. We can touch all disciplines. Other disciplines cannot touch legal discipline unless they engage another lawyer. Keep in mind, because law is the only one that which regulates the human behavior and the social behavior, the regulation of the order, the rights and obligations between the parties, the balance of convenience, the socially desirable consequence, and the ascertainments of rights and obligations of the parties. No other discipline is more challenging and more interesting than law. I used to say I am in love with law. I love this subject. It's the most beautiful subject that is ever possible for any problem, because it touches 360-degree. You know everything, what is happening in the society and why it is happening in the society, the cause and effect of it, and everything of it. So law students, especially final year students, those who are studying ethics or those who are going to enter legal profession, they should understand they can do all these 4. I am not saying you have to choose either one of them. No, you can do all the 4 and you can still get paid for it. Many times people say that if I take care of the cause, I may not get the client. Not necessary. You will get clients. Don't worry about. World is having its own problems and complexities. So problems, once it is solved, that can become another source for another problem. So life moves on. You don't need to much worry about, but you have to contribute something. So as a lawyer, as a legal professional, the concern and the care that you should keep in mind is about you deal with the client, you deal with the cause, a public spirited individual, what is called public interest lawyering, PAL. Then you deal with the concerns and you deal with change itself. So legal profession has this capacity. Yeah, I hope I have answered Vrishti.
Yes. Dr. Param, there is one attendee who has been attending the court also for quite some time. He is saying that when he research on a case, he sometimes feels that he is having predetermined notion of perception. So is it normal?
Yeah, it is because we are all socially conscious individuals. So environment decides and conditions us. But it is we who have to develop by reading, internalizing, analyzing, understanding so many things. We have to come out of that bias. It will not be helpful. We start from a particular stream of knowledge, particular stream of information. We start from somewhere. We have to start. But that becomes bias when we do not want to change. Bias is very intentional. Otherwise, I am currently giving this knowledge. After 10 years, I may be giving completely a different knowledge which may be greater than this knowledge. But I should be open enough to receive new knowledge from you. And if I say this is the knowledge and this is what I want to give and I don't want to develop more knowledge and I want to act on this, that actually becomes a conscious bias. That is not acceptable, especially for a legal profession. That's exactly where they say, you must have read about Judge Parry's the 7 lamps of advocacy. The 7 lamps of advocacy. Of course, it is 8 lamps. Ramnath Iyer has added one more lamp to it, which is called tact. If you see the 7 lamps of advocacy, industry, hard work is the most important which is. Because a lawyer is a conscious social individual. And the society is not static, it is continuously growing and continuously evolving. And there is so much of heterogeneity and complexity, and you cannot remain quiet. You cannot remain static. You cannot remain dogmatic. If you are, then bias comes. So we need to continuously develop by reading, by understanding, by analyzing. And above all, that is where I keep telling again and again, come out of this ordinary individual limited personality and move towards the higher personality. Have the big heart, a cosmic universal energy. It is there inside us. And you don't need to bow down to anybody for that. You just have to ask for it. It comes. So we have to develop this over a period of time. It is our responsibility if we consider legal profession as the most noblest profession of all the other disciplines. Yes, next.
Yeah, Dr. Param, there is one more question. That how would a person exploring law and justice from spiritual dimensions should define law, define justice?
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, this is a question which is very often asked to me. Very complex question. I used to say spirituality or justice definition in terms of spirituality means complete self-fulfillment. So far, we have social justice, economic justice, distributive justice, different types of justice. There is one justice which is self-fulfillment. That self-fulfillment includes social justice, economic justice, distributive justice, all kinds of justice. It is a great call to achieve, but that's exactly we are moving towards, if you see. Initially, we were talking so much about economic justice. The first law that got developed was property law. It is about a material object and a material land, and you are possessing it. And that's how the justice in relation to property, transfer of property, that act became most powerful act. Then slowly social justice became a point. Now slowly psychological dimensions are coming into the justice, what is called people are nowadays not talking about human rights. People are talking about human dignity. Now there is this new concept which is coming up, is called in Oxford University, where I happened to get an invitation, but I did not go. It is called not human rights, it is called human flourishing. How beautifully you flourish and blossom. State should help you towards that. Legal system should help you towards that. Collection of individuals in the society should help you towards that. Where legal professionals, advocates, they have a very crucial role. That's exactly where legal research ought to integrate spiritual knowledge. Mind well, in another 50 years, spirituality in law will become the normal. Now it is looking like an adventurous pioneering exercise, like how in Chicago University in 1960s and 70s, they introduced economics into law, what is called the economic determinism. Then came the Chicago School and so on, where the social engineering came, the ideas from Roscoe Pound, Real School, Benjamin Cardozo and so on. Now the new norm is about the psychological dimensions to justice. Recently I was reading a case from the European Court of Human Rights called Bellinger versus Bellinger, in which the court decided very clearly that if a man or a woman, if an individual decides that he or she feels the other gender, that right to feeling is also part and parcel of the human rights. The case is about two people getting married, it's a heterosexual marriage. Suddenly the other partner said that I never felt that I was this gender. I always felt that I am that gender, no matter I am physically like this gender. Court came out very clearly that you have every right to feel. So people are going towards that. Later on, now you understand the science and technology also has come into such a situation in which the gender, which is a social construct, can also be scientifically engineered and changed by changing the reproductive assisters, what is called sex reassignment surgery of reproductive. So science is now changing the human body itself. So we are actually moving towards the higher dignity, the highest dignity, which is well-being. I used to say that spirituality can prevent problems, because when you have empathy, you will not injure others. When you are peaceful, you will not create disturbance to others. So spirituality is preventive justice. It prevents injustice taking place. It is protective of justice. Yes.
So, Dr. Param, we have included all the relevant questions, and let me see, there are, almost all the questions are answered.
Oh yeah, okay, thank you.
So, thank you very much, Dr. Param, for sparing your time for us, and I hope all the attendees will be looking forward to your spirituality sessions, law and spirituality sessions that you conduct. And
yeah, it's a training program that is coming up in some time. I don't know whether I want to host it in webinar or in physical space. Now things have changed. So let us say I will certainly invite all of you for that.
Yes.
So I thank each and every attendee today, and all the panelists, and I once again thank Aarau University for inviting me. It's a great honor to be a part of Aarau University, which is always very adventurous in doing many great things. So I thank each and everyone for patiently hearing me, and feel free to write the email with questions, whatever that they want. I will share some material also to all the attendees. You can share it with them. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Param. Thank you.
Thank you.